A spot of calm in a region with strong political riptides. Costa Rica is a haven for adventure seekers, famous for its array of wildlife, waves and beaches. But playing paradise to the world does come with its consequences, and there are things that I wish I knew before I went to Costa Rica in the springtime of 2022. So with those in mind, here are the 9 things I wish I knew before I went to Costa Rica. Number 1, it's not actually as cheap as you may think. Some tours can cost upwards of $150 per person per day, which is insane seeing it borders Nicaragua, which is one of the cheapest countries to backpack in the world. Now, hostels can also cost upwards of £30 per night. However, there are some cheaper ones there, and I'd just advise you check on Hostel World and plan in advance. Particularly around Easter time, prices can double or triple, so maybe backpack in the low season when it is rainy and a bit more humid, however prices are a lot lower. This is the same for restaurants. Some American restaurants can cost upwards of $10 to $15 per meal for a burger. That's basically prices back home. However, I'll come on to later where you can eat and where it is cheaper to, because the local food's decent. It's not incredible, it's decent enough and focuses on rice and beans. But it's one thing to bear in mind. I thought Costa Rica was going to be a lot cheaper than it was. It's definitely the most expensive country in Central America. Number 2, and this is kind of a little bit contrary to what I just said, but take as many tours in the national parks as possible. Now, I appreciate these are going to be quite expensive sometimes, so therefore there is a way to get around it. I'm not going to advise you tag behind a tour on the walkways. However, if you walk around at your own pace, you'll see loads of tour guides with telescopes stopping on the walkways. More than likely there'll be something there, and they'll all have the binoculars out looking upwards to the treetops. So more than likely there'll be something there. Look up, ask, but don't be too cheeky and just follow them around the whole time. If you can afford a tour, definitely go to Corcovado and Monteverde. Those are the best 2, and it'll probably cost you about $30 if you can afford that. 100% worth it, because you'll see some incredible animals like quetzals, monkeys, and all a range of birds that you probably wouldn't see without a guide. Number 3, and the country looks small, but it does take ages to get around. Now, this is because the motorways are generally single lanes, so you end up following lorries for miles and miles, which does take a while. So, for example, from San Jose to get out to Puerto Viejo, it can take upwards of 6 to 8 hours, which is a very, very long time for the distance it actually is. So what I recommend you do is take it slow in Costa Rica. That's what the culture is all about, the Pura Vida lifestyle. So visit fewer places, but spend more time there. So you don't have to charge around the country with long journey times. As well, San Jose is the transport hub, so you're going to be spending quite a few layover times in San Jose. I'll come on to the city later because it's different, very different to other cities in Central America. However, do bear in mind that unless you do take shared shuttles, a lot of the public buses do go through the capital, which is in the centre of the country. Number 4, and staying on transport, Uber is actually illegal in the country, although you still can take it, and it is much cheaper. So I'm not going to say it's safer because it technically is illegal, and a lot of the drivers will ask you to sit in the front seat so you don't look like a taxi. However, it is a lot cheaper, so to get to the airport and to San Jose Centre, it was about half the price. It cost me about $8 compared to the $25 it would have cost in a normal taxi. So you can still use the Uber app. It is technically illegal. However, many tourists still do it because of its cheaper price. Number 5, and the final tip on transport, is to make sure in San Jose you know which bus station you're going to if you are taking the public buses. There are about 5 or 6, and San Jose is quite big. It's a city of 1 million people, which is about 1/5 of the Costa Rican entire population. And there are a lot of buses going in different directions. Sometimes the bus even departs from the basement of the bus station, which happened to me in Monteverde, and it was chaos trying to find it. But use the website Get By Bus, and it will tell you where to go, which bus station you should go to, and try and stay in a hostel near it the night before. Before we get on to tip number 6 and start talking about how to save money in Costa Rica, it would be great if you could just go down and subscribe to my channel. All these are completely for free. I've been to 70 countries now, so I'm going to give you loads of budget tips and way more to come in the coming months on this channel. So please go down and hit that red subscribe button. Tip number 6 is to eat at so-called sodas. Now, these are a lot cheaper in the touristy areas than the American restaurants, particularly in Monteverde. One that stands out, So go onto Google Maps and just put in sodas, loads will pop up. They're basically Costa Rican family restaurants. They'll do local Costa Rican food as well as some American food as well. But it can be about half the price. This can really help backpackers in Costa Rica, because otherwise the food bill really does rack up. Obviously you don't have to eat them every night. They're not the healthiest places to eat. So to go alongside this, make sure you stay at hostels with kitchens. So using Monteverde as an example again, because it basically is a tourist town, so quite expensive. I stayed in the Sloth hostel, which had a great kitchen, free breakfast, and there was also a soda right opposite down the road. So it was perfect. Take those tips in mind to save money. Number 7, and to make it the best value for money visiting the national parks, get there as early as possible. Now, this might be a 5 a.m, 6 a.m. job, because yes, they do open early. Sunrise is always about the same time, so always about 6 a.m, because it is basically on the equator. So get there early, you'll have the place to yourself, and it will make so much more value for money for you. There's nothing more annoying than loads of tourists being around making noise and taking loads of photos in the good spots. If you get there early, for example to Monteverde National Park, it'll largely be quiet. Especially to Manuel Antonio, make sure you book that a few days before. Go as early as possible, because that's when the wildlife's out. When loads of tourists turn up, the wildlife does become a bit harder to see, particularly for monkeys and sloths in the park. So yeah, that's something to bear in mind before you book your tickets to the national parks. Number 8, the Caribbean and Pacific coasts of Costa Rica really are different, and I encourage you to check them out. So Puerto Viejo and Tortuga National Park, they're great for seeing turtles laying their eggs. It's got a very Caribbean lifestyle, compared to the Pacific coast, which is quite a bit more active, and there is a whole host of biodiversity, more so than on the Caribbean coast. For example, Corcovado National Park, which you can access from the little town of Avita, just south of Manuel Antonio, is the most biodiverse place on the planet, which is unbelievable, and that's according to National Geographic. So you'll see animals that you probably won't see anywhere else in the world so easily. They do control tourist numbers, however I'll leave a link in the description of the tour I went on, which was really good, and we saw quite a lot of stuff. And that was towards the end of our Central American trip, and we still wanted to see all that wildlife. Really good fun. In terms of San Jose as well, which I think is important to mention, it is very different to other Central American cities. It has a kind of bad reputation, but I felt quite safe generally, and as long as you're travelling around in groups, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable at all. There was a neighbourhood I stayed in which was called Barrio Escalante, which was kind of a hippie neighbourhood, a little bit more expensive, around the Selena hostel. However, it's much, much better than other hostels in San Jose. So the location of your hostel there really does make a big difference. And my final tip for Costa Rica is just to get out there as much as possible. That you don't want to be spending days hungover in your hostel when there are just so much wildlife out there. You can go on a zip line in Monteverde across the rainforest. You can go volunteering on a turtle sanctuary in Tortuga, or you can go and walk around some of those biodiverse places in the world surrounded by so many monkeys that you'll probably get fed up with them. So don't waste that opportunity. It's expensive, yes, compared to other Central American countries, but there is generally so much to do. And go and check out my Costa Rica travel documentary for what I did and the routes I took. So those are the 9 things I wish I knew before I went to Costa Rica. Hopefully you found them useful and they save you money basically when you're in the country. Also stuff to bear in mind about where to go. I loved it, as I keep saying, definitely go and check out my channel for more travel hacks, travel tips and travel documentaries from all over the world. And I'll see you next week.